Hello and welcome back to my Java tutorial series. Today we're going to be learning more about methods. I don't believe I'm going to be teaching anything new. I'll just be reiterating what I said before and providing some examples regarding the various types of methods. First, I'm going to create a new class and I'm just going to call it methods examples. I'm going to check off public static void main because I want to test my methods, and here we are. So the first method I'm going to show is called a return method, and that means that something is input into the function or not, and an output is provided. So I'll go over to paint.net and kind of show what that is. So first I'm going to draw an arrow pointing downwards or into my next object down there, and I'll label this one input. And then I'll draw a box, and that's not going to work well. Let's make it a little bigger. And this one will be labeled the method or function, operation, whatever you want to call it. Method, perfect. And then draw another one. We'll label output. So as you can see here, input goes into the method, and then the method does something to it. So we'll say operation performed. Operation and performed. I'm not really being able to write this very fast because I'm using my mouse. So some operation is performed, and then it all gets turned into some output. That's a terrible circle. I'm just going to ignore that. However, you could also have a, actually before I go on, output equals what is returned. Let's fix that E. Perfect. Alright, now I'm going to go on and show another version of the, wow, it's ginormous. Let's zoom out. I'll show another version of the return method where we just have method and then output. So notice how this doesn't have an input. Not all return methods have an input, but they must all have an output or return value. Alright, so now let's go to an example. Let's say I wanted to make a function that added two numbers. Public static void, no, I don't want void. And those numbers are integers. Public static int add. And let's make that lowercase. Method names should usually be lowercase. That way, if someone sees it in a call or whatnot, they know, oh, alright, that's a method. So this needs two numbers for input. Num1, and actually need to say what kind of number it is. Int num1, int num2. Alright, so if I hover over this, it says this method must return a result of type int. It's a return method, so I can add a return statement. I don't actually want to return num2. Instead, I'm going to return sum. Now it has no idea what sum is because I didn't tell it that sum is anything. So if I create a local variable, int sum, and I say sum equals num1 plus num2. and I return it, it's good. So now let's test this out. So I'm adding 3 and 4. Now I should get 7. Um, oh, I'm an idiot. I actually need to tell it to print out something. I can't just say, oh yeah, add 7 and you know what to do. No, that would be silly. Alright, now let's test this one out. So we'll run 7, perfect, right? 3 plus 4, 7, makes sense, it works. Alright, so that was the returning an integer value. Now let's do one that returns a string. String, I'll just call it text, I suppose. And this one takes an input of some string s. Now what I want to do is make sure I have a return statement. So this will actually return s. I do want to do that. And we'll just say that s now equals s plus, let's do Java. Not very creative here. Alright, so now if we want to test this one out, let's do system out print line, and then I'll do text, and this is. Now when I print this out, it should have our method from above. Actually, I don't want it to say that, so I'll just comment that out. And then now it should just say this is and then Java. Perfect. So both of these functions or methods have taken input, performed an operation upon them, and returned some output. I'm going to go back to doing some numbers, just show you that this is also done. This can also be done with doubles or any other type really. And I'll have another another two numbers. I'll just multiply these two. Needs a return. And then I want to say it returns a product. Doesn't have a product, so let's make one. And then we'll say that product, yeah, I did spell that right, equals num1 times num2. Amazing. Comment this one out. And we'll do system dot out print line multiply, and I don't know, 16 comma 324. Actually, I'll use fancier numbers because we're using double. Alright, test this one. Perfect. We can go to a calculator and see if this is the actual product, see if we did this right. $5,520.53 and some change. Alright, looks like we did it. So that wraps it up for the return method, and now I'm going to do a void method example. And a void method is different because it doesn't actually have this return part. Sure, it can perform an operation, but it doesn't actually provide an output. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's do a new one. So in this case, we might have some input. We might not. Just do input, and I'll try and fit method in here. Alright, input, method, no output. That's the simplest void. We could also just have a method. And that's it for void. Now let me put that into some Java. We'll do public static void addition, and I'll take an input of two numbers, and I'll just say that this int sum equals, actually let's do sum equals num1 plus num2. And now I didn't declare it in here because I actually want to make it a variable that the whole class knows. I'll say int, I'll call it summation, and I wanted to call it summation and not sum because I don't want to interfere with this method. So we'll just say that summation equals that. Oh, yeah. Make it static so that this method can use it. And now if I say system, if I actually, first I need to do addition 19 to 135, and then I want to print out summation. So we'll get rid of that one, and we'll test it. So this should get us 254, and it does, which means we don't actually need to have an output. We can still do the same thing that this would do, just without returning it. Now, in an addition kind of stand, or any kind of operator, we probably want to do a return, make life easier. However, void statements are extraordinarily useful when we are given some kind of scenario that we need to code. So we need to solve some problem, and we need to use kind of a general variable that we need to do a bunch of different stuff with. In which case, void would be useful, most useful. That way we can just do something, not have to worry about what the result is if we don't need it. I'll do another void that doesn't actually take input. Public static void. I'll do division. Int I equals summation divided by, I don't know, let's do 8 and see what happens. Actually, yeah, why not 8? And I should make this a double because that's not going to be a friendly number, I don't think. So I isn't used at all, which means in order for it to know what it means, we'll just we'll stick it up here. Alright. So now we give summation a value, and then we'll just have this one print out I. 0. Oh, alright. So now we'll actually tell it to, give I a value. There we go. 31. Now let's test that double theory. Alright, so I don't believe that 254 divided by 8 is actually a... Yeah, okay, so 31.75. So that's an important lesson when you ever try to say that an integer value equals a double value equals an integer, like divided by an integer operation. Because what this will do is say, alright, summation's an integer, and 8's an integer, so when we divide the two, we'll return an integer value. And the closest integer value for that case is 31 because it's a floor function. If there's going to be a remainder, it just takes it cuts away the remainder and takes the integer value that is a part of it. So it removes the 7.5 and puts in 31. Because it's a double, it says, alright, that's going to be 31.0 because they want it to be double for some reason. So we'll change that one back to int. and then we'll have 31 again. So that concludes today's lesson. Bunch of different examples of methods. Sorry this one's kind of long, but there's a lot of different types of methods to use. I didn't even cover all of them. I just showed you like the two varieties that are most frequent, and that is something that returns or something that doesn't. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Like, subscribe if you found anything useful, and see you later, guys.